Now we'll be hearing from General Breedlove, the former command of Supreme Allied Command, Europe, SHAPE, Belgium, and Headquarters, U.S. European Command, Stuttgart, Germany. Let's welcome General Breedlove to give us the keynote address titled Countering Disinformation, Russia's Hybrid War and the Information Battlefield. General Breedlove, it's an honor having you.
Friends, thank you for allowing me to address you on this important subject. I want to start by just relating that 8 days before this war started, I was on a small team of ambassadors and generals that got to meet with President Zelensky, as well as his senior leaders, both civilian and military, about what was going on in their country. President Zelensky was pretty adamant. He pointed out to us that the West has been so enamored with what's going on our border and the Russian buildup that we haven't seen all the effects of the hybrid war that Mr. Putin was conducting in his country. And a major part of that is what you're here to discuss. The major Russian tool at that time was the information warfare and the work that Russia was doing to discredit his government. In fact, Russia was trying to discredit the whole revolution of dignity, or as we in the West call it, the Maidan. And Mr. Putin credited this to the CIA. So today we have to just remember that we are facing a war that is completely manufactured by and completely contrived by Russia. And remember that this war is unfortunately bigger than Ukraine. While we feel for the Ukrainian people, it is bigger than that. Just before the war started, Mr. Putin handed us 2 draft treaties. And he said, sign these or there will be other means. We now know what other means meant. And these 2 treaties would have completely restructured the European security architecture. It would rebuild a Soviet Union, Warsaw Pact-like security arrangement that would have changed the face of Europe. As for Ukraine, the first step in that attempt is that it would install a puppet government to run the country. It thought that it could take the country over very quickly, reestablish Russian leadership in Kyiv, and that things would settle down pretty quickly. Of course, their plans failed, their assumptions were bad, and the war started, and now it seems that Russia is attempting to essentially destroy Ukraine as we know it, and then rebuild it in a Russian mold. We should not be surprised by this. Frankly, our response to Russia across the last several decades have been inadequate to task. In 08, in Georgia, and then in 14 in Crimea and the Donbass, the West allowed bad behavior to stand. In fact, frankly, the West rewarded bad behavior by allowing Mr. Putin to hold land that he used his army to seize. The West, in response, has focused on sanctions. And sanctions are tough. We brought some pretty tough sanctions. Sanctions have hurt the Russian Federation. It has hurt the economy of Russia. It has certainly hurt the Russian people. But sanctions have never, I'm going to say it one more time, sanctions have never changed Mr. Putin's behavior. And that should be the measure of merit. I'm excited to see you and other students across NATO and partner nations taking on this hybrid war Mr. Putin is waging. Specifically, I am just pleased that you are looking at this important task of countering disinformation, which is a huge part of Mr. Putin's warfare. Russians' disinformation operations were ongoing long before this current war. And we've seen it here in America, as you're well aware, in our elections and other matters here inside our own country. It is a part of a whole of government attack that Mr. Putin and his senior generals, Gerasimov and others, use as a part of their indirect means to attack. We call it the hybrid war or the gray zone war or the war below the lines. In this particular situation in Ukraine, Mr. Putin, as you know, is trying to still describe this to his people as a special military operation. That, of course, is wearing thin because of the mobilization that he's had to undertake, and people are seeing through it. He continually talks about the denazification of Ukraine, and he wrote a paper and speaks all the time about how there is no Ukraine. Ukraine is just a frontier of Russia. In fact, sort of like we talk in America about the West and the South, Mr. Putin talks about the Ukraine rather than Ukraine as a nation. Frankly, now it is time. We have to empower and encourage NATO member states and partner nations to counter this Russian disinformation. I'm so proud of you in being a first step in beginning to talk about this at a very important level to bring attention to things that we have to do. This will take courage. You have shown courage. We need our leaders now to show courage. We need them to develop policy that would allow us to return fire in this war. The West has been very slow to take this on. You and the efforts that you're making today, you can make a difference. To close, if you haven't figured it out from what I've said, I'm really proud of what you're doing. I'm proud of this important work. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your ideas. I'm more importantly, I certainly hope that what we will see is our nations seeing your ideas put into practice. I wish you the very best. Work hard. We need you.